Let's work on this example here. We've got Teresa, who's planning a 30-day vacation in Penang, Malaysia, 1 year from now. And I guess the idea is she's trying to figure out what price she's going to pay 1 year from now. Because right now, the cost is 1,039 ringgit per day for this hotel. And given that the ringgit presently trades at 3.117 to the dollar today, well, if she was going to stay today, then a 30-day stay would be $10,000. Because if she's going to stay, it's 1,039 ringgit per night. That's one of our assumptions, let's call them. Then 30 days at that rate is 31,170 ringgit. We divide by that exchange rate of the spot rate today, 3.117 ringgit to the dollar, and then that's how we get that $10,000. But that's if we stay today, and so the hotel is informing her that any increase in its room charges will be limited to any increase in the Malaysian cost of living. And cost of living, when we talk about cost of living, we're talking about inflation. And Malaysian inflation is expected to be 2.65% per year over the next year, whereas U.S. inflation is expected to be 1.35% over that same time period. So it looks like we've got the last bit of what we need from this problem as far as information, the inflation differential. And what we're being asked here is first, how many dollars, US dollars, might Teresa need to have to do this stay 1 year from now, if she's going to stay 1 year from now? And by what percent will that dollar cost have gone up and why? And so it looks like kind of the language here is what we're being asked to do is figure out what the spot exchange rate is going to be. I mean, yes, we're buying a hotel stay 1 year from now in a foreign currency. What we're really being asked for is how much is that going to be in U.S. terms 1 year from now? So we need to convert some currency first. And you can kind of get a hint just because of the chapter we're in, as well as the fact that they're bringing up inflation differentials here, talking about different inflation rates and the expectations for different currency values in the future, that we're probably talking about some sort of PPP type problem. And so I'm going to write a formula that we're going to use for purchasing power parity and put it here in kind of this formula subcategory on the left. And that's the idea that you can get the expected spot rate, the spot rate that's expected in the future, by taking the current exchange rate today, the spot rate, the real spot rate today, and then multiplying it by the inflation differential of those two countries. 1 plus the rate of inflation for Malaysia, and then 1 plus the rate of inflation for the US. That's a differential. And so if we do this with the data that we've got our spot rate here of 3.1170 ringgit to the dollar. This is the rate today, what you can convert Malaysian ringgit for US dollars. We've got our inflation data coming over from over here. And this allows us to get our inflation differential data in. When you use this formula, just be mindful of which one is on top and which one is on bottom. Here we've got the ringgit on top. And so to be consistent, we've also got the Malaysian inflation rate on top on this part of the equation. And then USD is on the bottom of this. It's, since it's a 1, we don't always explicitly write it, but that means that the US interest rate, the US inflation rate is also going to be on the bottom. So this is our expected spot rate, and this simplifies to 3.156981 ringgit to the dollar. And this is our expectation of what the exchange rate is going to be 1 year from now, based on just looking at the inflation differentials. So I'm going to kind of clean this up and put this over here as our answer to this formula. And then maybe the next thing we can do is figure out how much these hotel charges are going to be, just first in ringgit, not what they are right now. We've already kind of figured that out. But what they're going to be 1 year from now, keeping in mind the current rate, Malaysia's rate of inflation, and then the fact that we're staying for 30 days. So we've got our current rate per night coming from here, the 1,039. Inflation over the next year for Malaysia is anticipated to be this 2.65%. And we're adding a 1 to that. And we're staying for 30 days. And so this is in total equal to 31,996 ringgit. And that's going to be our answer for this formula above. And so once again, I'm going to kind of clean things up a little bit. And so we are kind of almost there. If this is the amount in ringgit that it's going to cost 1 year from now, then we can use the spot exchange rate that we just calculated to convert this amount into dollar terms. And so this brings us to our final formula for this question. How much dollars are needed to pay for this expected stay 1 year from now? And so we take those total hotel charges in 1 year in ringgit terms, and then divide by the spot exchange rate that we expect at that time between the ringgit and the US dollar, this number here. And that gives us our answer in dollar terms, ringgit per dollar divided by ringgit per dollar, of $10,135. That's how many dollars Teresa might expect to need 1 year from now to pay for her 30-day vacation. All right. And then there's one more question that's being asked, and that is by what percent will the dollar cost have gone up and why? For that, for us to answer that question, we need one more formula, and thus we need a little bit more space here. So I'm going to shrink what we have so that I can fit one more formula. And that formula is just taking the cost 1 year from now in dollar terms, dividing by the original cost, that $10,000 here. And it's just a percentage change formula. P2 divided by P1 minus 1, percentage change, this time in dollar terms. So those numbers applied to this formula applied to the numbers that we have, that'd be the 10,135 divided by the original 10,000 cost, and then all minus 1. And that gives us 1.35%. The price has gone up by 1.35%. And really the reason why is that because we kind of constructed our future spot rate to go up by the amount of this inflation differential, then the kind of effective cost for a US buyer has gone up by the amount of inflation for the US. So it's sort of like assuming that relative purchasing power parity holds here, And that's why it's gone up exactly by the US inflation amount.